Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an A330 pilot, and in today's video let's talk about the equal time point. Now this is a feature that I'm sure many of you have noticed on the Phoenix 320 already, but have probably not understood fully, or at least are not using actively. So let's go right into it. The ETP is the point from which it takes the same amount of time to return to the previous airport than it takes to return to the next one. That far, that logic. Let's have a look at where to find and edit it now. Obviously we do have it available on the nav display over here, but there's a little bit more into that. So if we go onto the data page and then down to the equal time point, that is where we can edit the airports and the winds for the equal time point. Normally it defaults to the departure and the destination, but pilots are supposed to actively work with it in flight. So for example, right now we've got Birmingham behind us and we have, let's say, Echo Golf Oscar Victor in front of us. Let's just pick some random airports here. So in that case we would insert those airports if they are considered our diversion airport en route. And remember, this is just a practical example here. This is not necessarily useful to use those exact airports right now. And if you insert those two, then the plane is going to calculate the point where it takes the same amount of time to return to Birmingham or to fly on to the other airport over here. Now, the ETP function should be used to assist the crew in making a decision should an en route diversion be required. Suitable airport pairs should be entered on the ETP page, and the FMS will then calculate each equal time point. Each time an equal time point is sequenced, the crew should insert the next suitable diversion airfield. So when we fly over this, then we would say that Echo Golf Oscar Victor is now our suitable diversion airfield, and then next up we could take, for example, Dublin, which happens to be our destination today as well. Now, the secondary flight plan is a useful tool and should be used practically. The equal time point should be inserted in the secondary flight plan as a place distance point, and the route to diversion airfield should be finalized. By programming a potential en route diversion, the crew would reduce their workload should a failure occur. This is particularly true when terrain considerations apply to the intended diversion routes. Now, when an ETP is sequenced, the crew will access the ETP page, insert the next applicable diversion airfield with associated wind, read the new ETP, insert the new ETP as a place distance point, copy active on the secondary, and insert the new diversion as new destination in the secondary flight plan from the new ETP. Now let me give you an example. Let's say we wanted to fly to Echo Golf Oscar Victor. What we do is as follows. We are going to copy the active flight plan. Then looking at the equal time point, we can say it's Vatry minus 71 miles. So let's go in here and we take Vatry slash minus 71. And now we're creating a waypoint 71 miles prior to Vatry. And that PD point, as you can see now, is exactly our equal time point. Now from here, we would insert a new destination, Echo Golf Oscar Victor, like that. And then we could insert our arrival, whatever that may look like. Say, just for example, ILS 13, no star, via X-ray. And like that, we could set the plan up pretty much like that. And now we'd have our diversion prepared for that approach. Now, likewise, once we overfly the equal time point, we are going to renew the ETP. So let's say that we are going to overfly it right now. Let's say that the waypoint is getting sequenced. We'll just pretend it is right now. Now we're going to replace Birmingham, which we are no longer going to fly to, with the next suitable airport. In this case, it's going to be Dublin. So we're just going to insert that. And as you can see now, a new equal time point is located somewhere down the route. So now this is the equal time point between diverting to Echo Golf Oscar Victor or diverting to Dublin over here. And like that, you would continuously sequence your ETP along the route. Obviously, when you're flying a very short route, then it may just be the easiest to keep your original departure and destination aerodromes. Like on this flight from London to Dublin, it's certainly easiest just to keep the departure and the destination. Number one, because there's lots of en route airports that we might divert to. Number two, because both of which are in equal reach. As you can see, distance to London Heathrow 100 nautical miles, distance to Dublin 146, so easy going. Now, one question is rather unclear among many pilots, and that is not just among flight simmers, but also among real-world pilots. That is, which wind are you going to insert over here? So the ETP is going to be based on the average wind going towards London Heathrow in this case, and the average wind going to Dublin in the lower case. Now, obviously, that wind is going to have a tremendous effect on your actual flight. Now, and on the actual ETP location, especially when we take weather into consideration, say flying across the Atlantic. Now, there are a few things that you could do. One philosophy is to insert the planned cruise winds. So let's say we set the ETP 71 miles before Vatry, so we could, for example, take one of the early winds, say here at the top of climb, 337 for Heathrow, and then something at the top of descent, 286 at 52, and we could insert these two winds. Likewise, we could also go a little bit further down in our flight documents and have a look at the wind charts. Now, you can either have a look at some of the en route winds, or you might just take the wind of flight level 100. The idea behind taking the wind of flight level 100, provided that you've actually got data for that, is that when are you going to need an ETP? Well, probably when you got a decompression and you got to divert to the next airport. In that case, the winds at level 100 might make sense over here for your equal time point. But in case that you got a technical malfunction, or that you got an ill passenger whom you need to bring to a hospital, then the winds at your cruising level might make more sense, or the wind at a possible diversion flight level might make more sense. Let's say, for example, you're flying across the North Atlantic and you need to divert to an alternate airport. You are not going to do that up in the oceanic levels that most aircraft are flying, but you will go down at somewhere around flight level 280 for that diversion. So in that case, you might insert the wind of flight level 280. As you can see, there's loads of considerations for the actual wind data to insert, and there is no real right or wrong over here. If you ask 5 captains, you're probably going to get 30 answers, because there are so many different possibilities. Personally, I've come to the conclusion that since we can't really foresee what is actually going to cause the diversion, I'm just not going to enter any winds at all, and I'm just going to keep it in a zero wind condition, and that is how I'm using the equal time point feature. But as I mentioned, there are plenty of other possibilities of how you can use it, and each of them makes sense in their own way. Alright, finally, what I want to show you over here is what happens when we overfly the ETP. So you can see that we do have the ETP in here, and it's now just 1.5 miles away. As soon as we're going to overfly it, the page is going to show you ETP sequenced. Now let's just clear the enter destination data, and let's have a look at what is going to happen now. So here we go, overflying the ETP. Now it tells you equal time point sequenced, and that basically tells you that you have overflown the equal time point in question. So now, in case we needed to divert, we would continue on to Dublin rather than returning back to London Heathrow. Obviously, provided that we need to land as quickly as possible. There may obviously be other overriding considerations for you to return to Heathrow nonetheless, but that would be a completely different topic. Now, one more interesting page in this relation that you can use as a crew is the closest airport page, and you also find this under the data prompt, and then you go up here to closest airport, and over here the plane tells you which your closest suitable airports are. Now, note that closest suitable does not necessarily mean that they're the best options, but it gives you a good overview. In this relation, it is also worth mentioning that airlines usually use company-tailored databases. That means that using the Navigraph database, as we do over here, you're just going to have any airport in there, and it's only going to be filtered by minimum runway length. In the real world, what most airlines do is that they only insert those airports into the database that are really relevant for you. For example, when I flew in Ryanair, London Heathrow wasn't even in the database because they said there is absolutely zero reason for you to divert to Heathrow. There's so many airports around that Ryanair flies to, therefore we don't need Heathrow. And that way, if you are doing this in a real-world aircraft, then you're actually going to get some very useful suggestions there for airports that you can possibly use. Now, finally, you can also enter an airport manually. Let's say, for example, we want Birmingham in there, then we can always put one more airport into here, and that is also going to be shown. So this is another page to figure out which are the closest airports to you, and like that you got to do careful managing of your alternates en route in order to determine which is the best alternate at all times. Now, as mentioned, equal time point on the database, then ETP. Once you overfly the ETP, do update those airports over here so that you constantly get a good indication. Obviously, until you get into a critical phase of flight, like now Dublin 110 miles away, obviously I'm not going to play with an ETP anymore. But when you're flying en route, when you're flying longer sectors, this is certainly something that you should keep in mind and that you should be playing with in order to optimize your flight profile at all times. I do hope you found this video interesting. If you did, then be sure to let me know in the comments below. Leave a like on YouTube as well, as it does really help out the channel. And if you're up for more, don't forget to subscribe. I would like to thank you very much for choosing to fly with us today. Hope that you've enjoyed your flight. I wish you a nice and safe continuous journey. If you really love these videos, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all again on the next one.